Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to create a cap mold with your resin master dice. So let's get into it. So the first thing that you are going to need is a set of master dice, like I am showing in the video, some isopropyl alcohol to clean your dice, a 4-inch PVC pipe, some tape to stick your dice to, or these metallic sheets like I got from the dollar store, a hot glue gun, and a microfiber cloth. So the first thing that you are going to want to do is clean all of your dice. You can do that using some 91% isopropyl alcohol. I just use a little spray bottle and I spray some of that onto my dice and wipe it with a microfiber cloth. You do want to make sure that the faces are as shiny as possible. Here is a close-up of the D6 that I just finished cleaning. And here is the sped up version of me cleaning the rest of the dice in the set. You can use nitrile gloves if you want to make sure you don't get any fingerprints on the dice after you're done cleaning. But if you just be careful not to touch the faces after, it is also fine if you don't. It does take around 10 minutes to properly clean all of the dice in a set using this method, but it is worth it because the dice are super shiny and the molds are really nice after. And the shinier you are able to get your dice before molding them, the less work that you're going to have to do after to polish them. So once you are done cleaning your dice and they are all nice and shiny, you can take the low face on all of them and stick them to the sticky side of the paper or the tape, whatever you decide to use. If you guys want to get a nice crisp edge on your mold after pouring the first half, you can do that by pressing down on the dice a little bit once they are on the sticker paper, just to make sure that it is nice and stuck. So the next step is optional, but I do highly recommend it. I just bought these little sticky beads from the dollar store and I use them as keys on my mold. The main purpose of putting the keys on the face of the bottom half of the mold is to make sure that your mold stays in place when it's in the pressure pot, and so that you don't get any faces that have shifted to the sides and have off-centered numbers. So once all of your dice are on the sticker paper and you have your keys on there as well, you can take your PVC pipe and just place that right over top of all of the dice. Then you are just going to want to take your hot glue gun, and you're going to want a hot glue gun where the PVC pipe and the sticker paper meet. This just prevents any of the silicone from finding a leak anywhere and spilling out. Then you can take your sticker paper and just push it up against the sides of your PVC pipe. This also helps to make sure that no silicone leaks, because sometimes the hot glue gun method doesn't get every single spot. And here is a little bit of a different angle just to show you guys what it looks like. At this point, you can now mix your part A and part B of your silicone of choice. I use Moldstar 15 Slow. I have used a couple different brands and this is by far my favorite, so I highly recommend it. The specific silicone I am using is a 1-to-1 ratio by volume or by weight. I do prefer to weigh my silicone and my resin by weight just to get more of an exact measurement. For this specific mold, I do use about 100 grams of part A and 100 grams of part B, which works out to, I believe, 3 ounces of each. Keep in mind that is only for the bottom half of the mold. The top half I use 50 grams of each, so 1.5 ounces each. Next, you're just going to want to stir your silicone, and you want to make sure you scrape the sides of your cup to make sure you're getting all of it, because if there is anything that's unmixed, it will not cure. A good rule of thumb is to mix your silicone for about 3 minutes. Once you are satisfied with how well you've mixed your silicone, you can start pouring it into your mold. You are going to want to pour the silicone on the lowest point, so not on any of the faces of the dice. And you are going to want to pour the silicone high and slow. This really helps to reduce the amount of bubbles that are in your silicone and reduces the potential for you to get bubbles in your mold. after it's done curing. Once you're done pouring it into the mold, you can place it into your pressure pot and close the lid. You're going to want to pressurize it about 10 psi over what you normally pressurize your dice at. I pressurize any resin dice in the mold at around 35 to 40 psi, so I will be pressurizing this mold at 45 to 50 psi. You're going to wait about 4 hours for the bottom half of the silicone to cure, and then we can pour the top half. So it has now been 4 hours, and I am just depressurizing my pot so that I can take the mold out, and at first glance, the mold looks really good. If the silicone wasn't cured enough, you would be able to tell pretty easily because it would be a darker color. Now that the silicone has cured for 4 hours, we are able to take off the sticker paper and take the mold out of the PVC pipe. You should take the sticker paper off nice and slow in case any of the faces has some resin around it that is sticking, so that you don't get any imperfections in the mold. I was really happy with the way that my faces came out on my mold, so there wasn't any work to be done there. At this point, you are able to take the keys out of the mold that you placed on the sticker paper earlier. Once you are done taking the keys out, you can start cutting the keys that are on the edge of the mold. I use a small X-Acto knife to cut the keys. I do that by cutting a triangle on the top of the mold and then cutting down on the side of the mold just so that there is a bit of a indent in the mold, and that will help to hold it in place. I do also do about 3 to 4 keys around the edge of the mold just to make sure that I orient the cap of the mold properly and don't get any faces that have the wrong dice intended for it. Once you are done cutting the keys, the next step is to take some Vaseline and either a Q-tip or a paintbrush, and you are going to want to paint the entire top of that silicone mold with the Vaseline, including the keys that you put on the face of the mold and around the edge of the mold. You want to make sure that you get as close to the face of the dice without actually getting any Vaseline on the face. The Vaseline acts as a mold release for the silicone. So if you miss putting Vaseline on any of the already cured silicone, when you pour the fresh silicone on it, it will adhere to it. Once you're done putting the Vaseline on the mold, you can place the PVC pipe back around the bottom half of the mold. I am not going to go through the silicone process again, but essentially you want to follow the same steps, except using only 50 grams of part A and 50 grams of part B, which works out to 1.5 ounces of each. You are going to want to place it back in your pressure pot for another 4 hours to let the top half of the mold cure. When you take it out of the pressure pot, you're going to want to check and make sure there aren't any noticeable flaws on the outside of the mold. If there are no flaws, then you can separate the top and the bottom of the mold, but you are going to want to do it very carefully in case any of the silicone did cure to each other. If you do have that happen, you can still salvage your mold. You will want to pull the silicone nice and tight and use a knife to cut it as close to the base as you can. In my case, I didn't have any issues. And there you have it. Now you can take your masters out and start casting resin in your mold. If you guys found this information useful, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. I plan to start posting tutorials on dice making about once a week.